How you guys doing today? It's Anthony Gangi. Welcome to another episode of Tier Talk. Guys, to continue with the momentum of weapons and contraband, we've been getting some emails, and they've been asking, hey, Gangi, you think Russ can discuss some of the hiding spots that he has found contraband? More specifically, we're looking at cell phones and weapons. That's what the question was that was sent our way. Can you see if Russ is willing to give up some of those locations where he found cell phones and weapons? So we're going to discuss the obvious and the not so obvious. But I believe the way Russ is going to plan this out and the way we're going to have this discussion today, it may be specific to his story, but you can easily apply it to the other facilities. Now, guys, mind you, this show is sponsored by three entities. We have American Military University. Guys, if you're looking to seek higher education, get that degree, check out American Military University. It's a great online school, and they're very supportive of what we do on Tier Talk, but more importantly, supportive of the corrections profession. We also have Guardian RFID. From inmate tracking and cell checks to cloud-based business and artificial intelligence, Guardian RFID digitally transforms jails, prisons, and juvenile detention facilities of every size. Visit guardianrfid.com for more information. And guys, check out their YouTube channel as well. We do put content on their channel as well that's independent of this and just good information, on both channels. And guys, this video is also sponsored by Shea USA. Now, Shea is spelled Ceia. Shea. Shea USA is the world's leading weapon, cell phone, and contraband detection system manufacturer for corrections. Now, for more information, contact Joe Vasquez at 440-561-7615. He's a subject matter expert, passionate about our industry, and he'll take good care of you. Guys, check out their website because they also have increased in their level of technology. And guys, don't forget, I have Inmate Manipulation Decoded. It's a great book. It's available on Amazon. The link is in the description. And I'm still working on my daily reader for corrections. I have changed the title. I kind of playing with it, but it's going to be something like what I've learned in prison while working from custody to admin. Of course, Russ had a little bit of a joke today. And when I said from working from custody to admin, of course, Russ said, oh, from traveling top to bottom. And for a second, I was going to utilize that. For a second, me automatically thinking Russ is my brother and I trust him. Hey, that's a great idea, Russ. I'm going to stamp that. And then a few seconds later, I realized that's not such a good idea. And Russ was joking. But Russ was committed. He was going to let me go through with it. That's the good thing about Russ. Once Russ is committed, he is committed. And all right, so let's see. We got Russ. Hey, Russ, man. What's going on? Keepers of Chaos?
Hey, how's it going, Anthony? I think this is going to be a great discussion, and commitment. That's what I'm all about.
Yeah, hate you today, but still love you. It's a very, very conflicted relationship. Hey, Russ, real quick, do you mind introducing yourself? Keepers of Chaos is doing phenomenal. I mean, and I want to mention something real quick, guys. If you guys get a chance and you're on social media, the cool thing about Keepers of Chaos is you guys are on point when it comes to moderating it. You don't allow people to be insulted. You allow freedom of expression. We get that. But respectfully, you allow respectful conflict to exist. I just find, to me, as administration, if I could choose any Facebook group that I say, hey, I'll be comfortable with you guys joining this one, that would be one of them. Just the stuff that you guys offer on every level. I mean, the caliber of people there, administration, custody, civilian side of things. I mean, guys, what a great way to network and kind of get a big understanding of what this profession's about from the get-go, or even if you're already in it. But Russ, what's going on with Keepers, man?
So yeah, we continue to grow. We continue to monitor what we're doing. Our big thing is that we're really concerned about professionalism in our respective departments across the nation, even across the world for that matter. And so our real focus is on doing things that help the line staff, the line officers, the nurses, the administrators, the teachers, anyone that is, actually involved in corrections. Of course, it's mostly geared toward that custody aspect, but what we really try and maintain is a place to go for information, knowledge, content, history. And it's, not just, jokes and cutting up and stuff like that. It's really all about furthering the profession and trying to, move those chains to make everybody a little bit better, a little bit more well-informed, and give them all something that they can take away and use in their day-to-day interaction with inmates, other staff members, what have you.
Hey, Russ, just real quick, the people that help you moderate Keepers of Chaos, any shout outs you want to give?
Yeah, my two biggest guys right now, and they've been with me from the start, are going to be Jack Mosley and Jim Hall. And you know what? They get in there each and every day, and they look for new members that have submitted their membership. They help vet those guys. They post their own little bits of information about things that they had in their career. They look for stories. And, I just couldn't be blessed with two better moderators. We have other moderators there too. Don't get me wrong, but those guys are the ones that have really, led the charge and helped, free me up to actually go to work in the mornings.
Hey, Russ, before we get into this dialogue, so this was a request that came our way, and we're going to send it out as well, make sure that the person gets this. But this, to me, is a request that you want to fulfill immediately. Because of obviously the good advice that we're going to provide here, it could help people find stuff that can make their facility that much safer. But let me ask you a question. Do you think it's rare? Now, I've only worked with really good professionals. You know me, I'm going to brag about everybody I worked with and worked for because I do love this profession. I'll always try to find the best at someone or something. With that said, through the course of someone's career, do you think the average officer will find cell phones, drugs, weapons, or do you think that it's a lot rare than we may think?
Great question. I think that the real true answer to that is the fact that these inmates that we have in these facilities, I think a lot of staff, even perhaps some experienced officers, mistake them for acting out and doing things on an individual level. The real truth of the matter is that these things that involve cell phones, these things that involve dope, these things that involve the weapons and so forth, are actually orchestrated in an organized manner. This is actually, organized crime entities that participate in these things. So I think that it's a lot bigger than a lot of people realize. At the same time, if you're doing your job, you can cut down on a lot of that stuff. But there's nothing that stops these people from acting in concert with 1, 2, even 10, 20, 100 other people to bring in phones, to bring in dope, and to do the things that they have to do to secure those things inside the facility. So if you view it from that perspective as an actual organized crime syndicate, I don't think you'll be very surprised at the things that you do end up finding.
Yeah, my career, to be honest with you, I started my career at a female facility. We didn't find a lot of big things there, that I remember, but don't get me wrong. Officers were on point with their searching, which could deter. Don't get me wrong, it could deter. But not as much as you were finding in a male facility. I remember maybe 1 or 2 incidences with a cell phone, and it kind of just like, okay, whoa, lock it down. It became this whole big thing, which rightfully so it should be. Having said that, but having worked in the male facilities I've worked at, it happens. Sad to say, or the drugs, and it's just, I don't know if they're more organized in how they do it or whatnot. Not that you get blinded by the routine, but the officers that I have supervised, they're definitely spot on in their game, and they find it a lot more because, again, it's part of that routine, and whether targeted searches or spontaneous or, oh, I just feel something's not right. I do see it a lot more often inside a male facility in regards to finding phones, drugs, and weapons than I did more at a female facility. But that is just my experience. I'm not minimizing anybody. I believe that if the efforts are done 100%, if it's there, it's there. If it's not, it's not. It doesn't minimize the effort being put in. Remember, we don't do it by outcome. We do it by effort. By effort is key. But Russ, real quick, do you think there is a difference between women having availability to that level of contraband or that innovative, making weapons and whatnot?
I think the thing that you have to understand about the male inmates is that they're generally more regimented. And by regimented, what I mean is they get caught up, whether they like it or not, into the political aspects of what goes on within the STGs at prisons. So when they're regimented, you'll see all kinds of things that they can and can't do, and that they can be what we call a removal, where they'll be, physically and violently removed from the general population for violating something. It could be something like working out. It could be something like not wearing the proper shoes to yard, believe it or not. It could be, that they feel like they lost a piece of significant contraband, and instead of assaulting the officer who was about to find it, they just let the officer find it and get away with it. So there is a lot more to that with the males, because that politicking does occur, and the threat of violence for failure to perform in those circumstances can be a lot more severe. And that's not to say it doesn't happen on the female level, but there is a different mindset with that.
Yeah, and guys, I've had a great career. I've worked in 4 prisons and very unique experiences. I haven't had an easy career, I'll tell you that. I started at a female facility, made my way a sergeant in a maximum security facility. Then I worked at one of the busiest facilities in my state, where we were just constantly busy. And then now I'm at the highest level of security at my state. And again, I'm pretty up there in regards to my influence in both how people allow me to influence them, but also in the position I'm in. But with that said, I'm a very good active listener. So I've worked with the best. I mean, you can't be in these facilities and not be surrounded by the best, which is great, because when you work with the best, you automatically know who the worst is, because everybody's stepping up. And for those that don't, you're easily recognized. Let me tell you something, guys. If you work in an active facility and that facility's got you moving, if you're not doing your job, you're going to be easily discovered. So for me, I've always worked with the best, which made me know who just wasn't cutting it. But having said that, I have learned through these experiences that I know which topics I feel comfortable with. I mean, I can most likely talk about a lot of topics, but I haven't lived it. And I feel that when it comes to someone who's lived it and gone through it, they're able to kind of just move through the dialogue a lot better, and then kind of get a better understanding from the inside out. And that's why I believe when it comes to topics like this is Russ. This is where he's at. This is his game. This is, sure, Russ likes to have his opinion about being admin. We know that. But, but this is a good dialogue to have Russ kind of lead the way in. So I'm going to ask, of course, some questions, Russ, to kind of motivate the dialogue, but feel free to, talk everything through, because this is a topic that, guys, I don't care. And some people may complain about the length of it. Guys, this is worth it. I mean, honestly, if you're driving to work, listen to it, whatever it is. You'll find time if it's of value to what it is that you need. And this dialogue, I don't know how long it's going to be, but we're going to kind of give you some good ideas of how innovative inmates could be, especially in survival mode. That's where they become most innovative. And I always said the inmates that are the least restrictive are the ones that are most innovative, because they have to, because that's just how it is. So Russ, right off the bat, Russ, the question that the guy sent in the email actually says, can you go with the obvious places first? So in your career, and we're talking about, obviously contraband could be hit anywhere, guys. We get that. We want to focus on the cell phones, the weapons, the it's sad to say, someone even mentioned escape plans, stuff like that. But the key here is that we're focused on the cell phones, the weapons, but what we would consider major contraband. So let's define that first. Russ, so we're on the same level. What would you consider major contraband that inmates are going to be a little bit more particular with and how they handle it?
Okay, so there's three major groups in my mind that fall into that, and that's going to be weapons, drugs, and cell phones. Needless to say, the drugs are always going to be the smallest and the hardest to find, especially if you're looking for them, at the use level as opposed to the distribution level. So with that in mind, you have to think about, what the minimum amount of space is that you can put something. And so when we talk about cell phones tend to be a little bit bigger and bulkier of an item. Except, there are some of these mini phones out there and stuff. And I've also seen some great examples of some cut downs that inmates have done on phones where they've, taken them apart and disassembled them and put the guts into other items. And so that's a concern too. Sometimes we get an idea about, what a size and shape of something is, and we start looking for that, and we can miss other potential areas because they don't fit that criteria in our conscious or subconscious or whatever's going on. So we have to be cognizant of that as well.
And now, Russ, depending on the consequences for these contraband items, I mean, sometimes inmates, they may hide it in areas where they can't be held accountable for if it's discovered, like weapons being hidden in a centralized area as opposed to being hidden directly in their cell, correct?
Yeah, weapons tends to be the one thing, they try and put those in areas that are easily accessible. They do tend to, unless they're just, completely committed to the cause or whatever's going on with that, to try not to hide them in their cell where they can, get some kind of penalty, being moved to seg or whatever. With items, though, like drugs, for instance, especially if it's not just for use, if it's for distribution and there's a large amount of it, they have to keep that in an area where they have, quick access, because you got to be able to sell it. But they also want to try and do something to protect it, because if they haven't already paid for that item, if they owe somebody money for it and we discover it and we take it away, it puts them in a position to potentially, be assaulted or stabbed or have a removal done on them. So those things take an element of security for the inmates to be able to have them. With cell phones, it tends to be the same way. They don't want to just throw a cell phone away or risk it being found without them being able to do something about it. But it's much more difficult because of the size of the item. But the problem with cell phones, for them at least, is that they're a premium item. So, your average cell phone smuggled onto a yard, might run an inmate, $2,000 or $3,000 if they can afford that. Some inmates will pay that and then, rent that phone out, for 40, $50 a shot, whatever it is. So that's just something to keep in mind. Weapons, because they tend to find, pieces of fencing or bits of metal, or they melt things down, are a much more disposable item that they can typically afford to lose.
Yeah, and guys, I remember watching a movie a while ago about the California system. And I remember the supervisor, he's walking around the reporter, and he's kind of telling the reporter how the inmates are grouped in this area of yard. And what I thought was good about this guy, and this is an older video, guys. If I can find it, I'll put the link in, but it's one of the episodes of Lockup, I believe. It's going to be hard for me to find specifically which one this is. But as Russ was having the dialogue, I was thinking, the guy was touring through the yard, the supervisor, I think it was a sergeant, and he's touring through the yard with the reporter. And he's telling the reporter how the yard is, separated by groups. And in this case, the group is really race, But he also mentions something that's not always mentioned in a lot of episodes, is he mentions that it's not just about them being together, but it's also they're very protective of their areas because that's where their resources are. So like if they're planning a war, they may have weapons stored in these certain areas. So they're not quick to give those areas up, because again, that's their armory, that's their arsenal. Would that hold some level of truth to that, Russ?
Yeah, and that's also, you got to remember, the particular area that they're in is also the way that they tend to, station their resources. They're going to have certain members of their group that are going to be assigned to, run some kind of lookout security. Most of these guys, if they have to travel across that line to a bathroom or something like that, they're going to have someone go with them in order to secure the area that they're using the facilities while they're using it, because that's a point at which they become very vulnerable. And so there's all of those considerations. And plus, some of these, whether the STG calls it the Minister of Defense or the Minister of Security or whatever, they'll try and, have weapons available in some of these areas. And that's why we keep having to attack those areas. Sometimes we'll go over them with metal detectors if we're worried about the metal being out there. Sometimes we just have to, dig and scrape a little bit if we think that they're using plastic. But, rest assured that they have a battle plan to use from whatever point that they have to, actually deploy from. And so they usually have that one tactical or strategic point that's kind of all theirs, and that they've carved up that. And there's, needless to say, there's a great deal of territoriality that goes on inside the prison walls.
Right. And that's why, guys, if you're in point with the intel and you're working with your STG groups and, I'm talking about the investigative divisions, whatever it is, and they say, hey, we know we got a specific concern between these two groups, you can kind of target areas that that they kind of take onus of, because that can help you say, okay, you know what? They're here in this area, so let's check this area out, because obviously if there's a concern, they're going to be stockpiling. Hey, Russ, so guys, I know there's a lot covered here that we're going to talk about real quick, and we can break it into multiple videos. But guys, to be honest with you, how me and Russ think about it is this. You could always watch it multiple ways, but if someone needs information, we got to get the information out there. Sometimes people can't wait a week for the next topic to be discovered. But if you guys only have 10 minutes at a time, then watch the video 10 minutes at a time. But having said that, this person's in need of information, and I want to go ahead and provide them with that information. So, Russ, first thing I want to mention this. I want to go, before we talk about the cells, I want to talk about centralized areas, because to me, that's obviously where you're going to see the biggest threats. Yards, chapel, mess halls, if we're still doing active mess halls, schools, stuff where the inmates can congregate as a whole. And, obviously at that point there, if they're going to plan something against an opposing group, these centralized areas are probably where it's going to most likely happen. So, Russ, what are some of the locations within these centralized areas that you would find weapons? Now, mind you, you could be general with most of it. I get it. But if you could be even a little specific, like if you're working in a school, check out these areas. If you're working in a yard, check out these areas. But if you want to go over some of the centralized areas where they can congregate, and then maybe discuss where you can find some weapons within those specific centralized areas, even workshops, food service, stuff like that.
Yeah. So when I'm thinking about, those common areas where there's a lot of access, that's really the key word, is accessibility. There has to be a level of accessibility for them to get there and to get the item, to retrieve it, and then be able to use it. So if you're talking about something like drugs, it can be much more difficult, because if someone can just go in there, and it could be any inmate, I mean, they could steal those drugs and they wouldn't think twice about it. Depending on which STG they're aligned with, they're willing to go to war for drugs or whatever. For a weapon, could be something, a little more difficult to find a good hiding place for. But when you're talking about medical, when you're talking about education and places like that, common area bathrooms tend to be really popular. It does kind of create a problem with regards for other inmates potentially accessing that particular, resource, if you will, of theirs. Anytime where you have ground that's, not covered by cement, not covered by asphalt or something like that, it gives them the potential to be able to tell everyone where a specific item is through triangulation. The edge of an apron of concrete, and then another area and angle, so that they know that where those two lines intersect, that's where they've stabbed the weapons, straight up and down in the ground. Maybe they've made a way to retrieve it, maybe a little piece of string or something like that, that's not readily identifiable. and they'll actually, put people out, on security on some things like that, depending on how hot the yard is at the time. And they'll just, be there to kind of watch and make sure that nobody else is, messing with that area. So like I said, the bathrooms, the yards, also, any place that they walk by that you wouldn't even necessarily think of because it's right there and they don't have privacy, but just something that they could grab real quick, a little ledge, maybe, just up over the top in where you might have like a vent or a light or a piece of conduit or something like that that just has the smallest of lips where they can hide that kind of thing. And, depending on what the item is, the level of access they need, they can be very, very creative. So, you just got to really put on that thinking cap and go in there and say, if I was an inmate, what would I do? I know I had an instance one time where I did that. I put my thinking cap on and I went in there and I thought, what would they be doing in here? And I thought, well, what if they are renting syringes, right? And sure enough, it wasn't too long before I found a couple syringes and these guys were just there and they would, lean up against the window and be able to put their arm in there and, they get their little shot or whatever. Very dangerous and very risky for them. But that's actually what was going on. And I actually went and retrieved some of the things where we could see, some of these individuals actually, getting shots through the window there. So never put it past them because they're willing to take on an awful lot of risk.
Yeah, I want to add something to this too, guys. So again, I could be maybe a little specific with this as well. So let's say you have food service, for example, or medical. Sometimes the porters travel out as well to the different units. But let's go with food service. So you may have food service inmates that have to deliver trays to the different units, right? And usually they should be under supervision, but sometimes it's not always the case. Sometimes we let them go and we check them before they leave the one area and then check them upon entering the other area. Now, I want you guys to be mindful of something. Let's say inmates begin their job, let's say in food service. I don't know if that requires strips. I don't know, but it should definitely require strips before they leave food service to go back to their unit because of the tools that they can have, or even a state like a dep corps or something like that, a manufacturing plant, if you will. I don't know. I'm trying to think of the word for that. A shop. That's what I'm thinking of. All right, so let's go with food service. So let's say you start your day where you get your food service workers up. And, they wake up, you get them ready, and then you take them from the unit and you escort them over to food service to begin their day. Now, there may not be a strip at that point. There may be a simple pat frisk or whatever it is. The bigger concern here is that we definitely got to get them stripped when their day ends and they go back to their units. We get that. But sometimes along the line, they have deliveries to get across through the day. And they know that, you know what? This will be a good time for me to have some type of contraband because I'm not going to get stripped before I make that delivery to the units. And what they do is they tend to hide stuff between point A and point B. So I'll give you an example. I'm told I'm an inmate. I got to go now deliver food to unit A, let's say. So I'm not going to get stripped right now. I'm moving my food. So let me go ahead and if I have something on me, let me go ahead and hide it between point A and point B. And then later on, when I leave for the day and I get stripped, it's okay because I hid something after that point. And then they pick it up and then they enter the unit. So sometimes during the day, if they're allowed out to make deliveries and whatnot, we should check those routes that they take because they may not be getting stripped every time they make a delivery through the course of their assigned duties and work days. But they will get it at the end. I'm not saying that. Of course, the day's over, strip them, send them back. But how many times did that inmate leave the work area that day? And have we checked their routes along the way? And that's not just for food service. That could be for porters that are let out. The list goes on. Would you agree with that, Russ?
Yeah, and it's actually not just that individual picking something up and bringing it in along the way, but you have to remember that anything that crosses that boundary, it doesn't have to be a body, it doesn't have to be an inmate at all. is subject towards, being used to smuggle something inside. If you have a minimum support facility on the outside running some kind of a warehouse, and they're loading up a truck to bring it in, and they're stacking pallets on it, and maybe especially if it's those nice plastic pallets with the hollow feet on them, and they're stacking all those up. What a great place to hide something. And they're out there in a minimum support area where maybe anyone can drop by and drop something off, and then they retrieve it and they drop it in the foot of one of those pallets, and then it gets brought inside, and then the crew on the inside, who doesn't have clearance to be out there but beyond that gate, they just have it right there. And those people never need to cross paths. They never need to coordinate this by being actually together. They coordinate it by what? By cell phones, by calling girlfriends and other people that are willing to set up the drops and so forth. So never underestimate the complexity of what they're able to pull off. So, those are just some of the things that, you lay awake at night and you go, oh my gosh, man, there's so many ways that they can smuggle this stuff in. And people always, they default to the whole thing, to visitors and dirty cops and this and that, maybe drones, and they don't see the bigger picture of where we have vehicles coming through. Well, what can you hide on a vehicle if you have 5 seconds of access to it and you've got a magnet? I mean, you can stick something up there, and let me tell you, you really need to understand just how well organized the STGs are. There's millions of dollars of drugs being sold in California by the Mexican mafia, for instance. So don't think, it's not some, podunk guy just smuggling it in for his own use, or his girlfriend's dropping him off, a couple of joints wrapped up in a condom or something. They really try and move real weight, and they have the method, opportunity, and resources to pull that off.
Right. And another thing, when it comes to those bigger, more centralized areas, what I would tend to do, and again, in my limited experience, right now, as I said, I've been an admin now for over 7 years. So in my time on the floor, when I was in those centralized areas like chapel, food service, the shops, the mess halls, the schools, I would look for blind spots. I would look for things that are just outside the officer's view that's on the floor, and maybe doesn't have any cameras there, which obviously now an admin, if an officer comes and tells me, hey, Gangi, can you help us with this? Or, can you see if we can get a camera in this area? There's a blind spot. Or if they go through their chain of command, we're going to be very supportive because we understand the need of why that camera is there. What that staff member is trying to tell you is that I can't look at that area at the same time looking over here. And as much as you want to give them more staffing, it may not be up to management to get them more staffing. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not relying on cameras to do staffing. I want more hands and feet on the job. I get it. But if I'm limited, I can't get that. If that officer is saying, hey, I know I can't get another staff member, and I know you're trying, but can you get me some more eyes there? Then yes. And then hopefully that camera filtered somewhere where there is someone at a centralized point looking at those cameras. But again, one of the things I would look at is, I like what Russ said before, is, look around, where would I hide something? And I know for a fact, if we know our areas well, we need to know where those blind spots are. One is because that's where they can hide stuff, but also that's where it's our safety. That's where if I know I'm crossing into that area, it's like, hey guys, be advised. Russ mentioned the bathrooms. That's a hell of a blind spot. Sometimes we're not going to have cameras in those bathrooms because of, inmates' rights. But Russ, would you be able to kind of generalize some advice on what are we looking for when it comes to blind spots? What would constitute a blind spot? And, what's the best way to kind of make sure that we balance that blind spot with creating some eyes on it, or technology if need be?
See, I just look at blind spot as an opportunity. Their opportunity for the inmates comes when they can do a transitional type of thing. They drop off a piece of contraband, and then it's picked up by someone else and moved further on. Like I say, I go back again to the coordination of things. Don't underestimate the amount of coordination that can take place. Also, blind spots are areas for them to be able to prep for an attack, or to be able to manufacture a weapon, or to be able to use that item, such as a cell phone. That they can't just, walk around the yard holding the cell phone up to their ear. Now, can they, get in a little Wi-Fi earbud and run around the yard like that? Look for the guy who's talking to himself. There's a lot of different ways that we can cover that. Cameras is a great one. The great thing about cameras overlooking a blind spot is that helps us preserve a chain of evidence, and evidence of, a crime that we can go back and see. It also gives us a chance to be able to look backwards and try and be able to, identify what the problem is with, a particular security breach. And it's a great investigative tool. So
it deters, Russ. It also deters.
Yeah, it does. It does deter. And so they really do know that exists. And there is a level of deterrence, but once again, I would always caution people: don't think that deterrence alone stops inmates. The level of risk that they're willing to accept is much higher than you and I would. So that's
Russ,
a thing.
If I may, I'm sorry. You're 100%. Can I get an example to piggyback off what you just said?
Yeah.
You said something so great. Can you repeat that last thought about the risk? Because I have an example I want to piggyback off of.
Yeah, you got to understand that the inmates are willing to accept a much higher level of risk than you and I are. We would never do the things that they do. We would never slam fentanyl. We would never just, walk up to another inmate and sock him in front of staff. They don't have the same barriers that we do towards this antisocial behavior.
Well, when we listen to phone calls, right at the beginning, it's going to say this phone call is being recorded, blah, 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 and they know it. And as the person speaking, this is what you hear. You hear that? The dial tone, the number, like they're pushing right through it. They're ignoring it. And then they go ahead and they state exactly what it is in regards to, and you got to bring these drugs in. You got to do this. You got to do that. So, right, Russ is correct. They know it's being recorded. They probably know that, there's someone listening in. But Russ is right. They don't care. One, they may not care because maybe the greater risk is if they don't do it. That's the weird thing. The greater risk is they're not afraid of us. They know we got rules. They're not afraid of us. They're more afraid of the fact that, if I don't do this, if I don't get this in, if I don't hide this weapon, my ass is grass. So they're more concerned about the people that are around them, which makes them jump and take that risk. So again, all because I love what Russ said. I just want to reiterate it, is you may have that deterrence in play, but Russ said something that's so valuable. We can have a whole show on this in itself, but if the risk is greater than what the consequences are that we could produce, they're going to take the risk, because in the end, the risk is more if I don't do something, the gang's going to get at me. And that's where the control of their behavior really, that's what they look for, guys, when they're mitigating it. They're not looking for, if I get caught, they're going to send me to lock. They're going to say, if I don't do it, the gang's going to take me out. So camera or not, I'll take the risk. And at the end, hey, I'd rather go to solitary, or I'd rather go to, I said solitary. I'd rather go to, get me on that one. I'd rather go to AgSeg or restorative housing as opposed to what the outcome is going to be, the gang taking me out. That was a good point, Russ. We've never discussed that. I don't think ever. And I'm actually going to use that for my daily reader. Okay, Russ, I'm sorry. Can you continue your thought? I apologize. That was a good thought.
Oh, no. So just getting back to that, one of the things that, I see, for instance, all the time doing, reentry and rehabilitation is the level. There is no risk aversity to what an inmate or, maybe a probationer, someone on parole does. They just don't see risk in the same way. And they've spent an entire lifetime doing very, very risky things, everything from, slamming dope and to, going in and robbing a store with a gun, getting in a shootout with the police. I mean, they don't have the same barriers. They don't have the same thought processes that we do. So you have to be careful with deterrence. Deterrence is good. but don't think that because there's deterrence there that nothing's going to happen. I've many times I've had inmates, carry out very serious assaults right in front of me, and they knew that everything was on the line right there, and they knew that that I was going to see it. They knew that they were going to be shackled and dragged off and everything, and yet they went ahead and did it anyway. So be careful. Like I said, deterrence is good, but it doesn't solve everything, and it doesn't mean that nothing's going to happen.
I'm going to do something on this for May 6th of the Daily Reader, and I titled it "Deterrence for an Inmate is Subjective Depending on Where the Risk is Greatest." I mean, we agree with that.
Wow, absolutely.
Two topics already, Russ. We got to do this more often. Okay, now, Russ, before we move forward from the from the centralized areas, again, we discussed just general approaches, guys. Now, mind you, guys, we could be more specific. Maybe one day what I'll do is we'll break down a show that says, okay, guys, checking out food service. These are the areas you have to check. And I'm sure we could do that along the line. Maybe starting next month, me and Russ could do a series of videos. We'll start off with maybe good hiding spots for inmates that work in the kitchen, good hiding spots for inmates that work in the shops. And we could do a series of videos. I'm sure Russ could do some research, put it out there to his Keepers of Chaos, talk to the officers and staff that work in these areas, and they can give us some really good specific hiding spots that we hope we can send your way. But right now, let's just get that generalized approach. And then on a side note, we could also send those specific videos later on, those series of videos, out to Shea USA if they're watching it, so they can go ahead and send it to their people as well. So, Russ, maybe for the month of May, we could do like a contraband episodes, and we'll keep it focused twice a week. We'll produce something new, and it will be about those centralized areas. So in the meantime, Russ, before we move to the next part, any last bit of generalized advice for searching those centralized areas, maybe even something a little bit more specific, your call, or we can move forward?
Okay, I would just say this. The main thing is be curious and use that whole what if game to your advantage. What if I was an inmate, how would I hide something here? And be creative and think outside the box, and don't get caught up and construct yourself into a corner. Just try and think, if I had to have this item, where would I put it, and why would I put it there?
Right. And I want to add something real quick before I lose this thought, and then Russ could maybe put this thought in as we discuss the next part. But Russ, are you partnered with me on that project for the month of May?
100%.
All right. So, guys, sometime soon, we may even do it before the month of May. Me and Russ may get bored tonight or tomorrow morning, whatnot. So maybe the next topic on this, Russ, whenever you're ready, is if you want to do some research, this is your expertise. If you don't mind, I'm only asking. Maybe we could start off with kitchen first. Inmates that work in food service, stuff like that. As an officer, where should you be looking? So we'll focus on that, and we'll have that out to you as soon as possible. Could even be before May. I want to do another tidbit before we go into the next area. Inmates that have long nails. Now, I know a lot of people are like, oh, they use that to scoop up and smoke. They also use that to turn screws. Figure it or not, but they do. Trust and believe, guys, I've seen it. And every time I see long nails, a lot of inmates are, no, you can't cut that. You can't cut that. I'm going to get that cut. I'm going to ask medical if they can cut it. I mean, yes, it also could be self-injurious behavior, but trust and believe, some of those times they're using those nails and they're strong enough to turn a screw. I just want people to know that. And guys, I've seen it. So for people that don't believe me, trust and believe, I've seen a nail on someone's finger turn a screw that was pretty good in place. And Russ, before we move forward, would you agree that is something that inmates have learned to do, is to grow a nail and use that to turn a screw?
Oh, certainly. And any time that they can, dissect or disassemble something that they can get to either get behind there and get something out of it, whether it's a wire or a piece of metal or just a place to hide something, it presents, a danger for all of us. And so that's one of the reasons why, tools are just as important to detect and take off the line as weapons are. And
okay, so
that's a tool. That's a tool.
That's a tool. And guys, as I said, medical should work with you. There's a reason for it. It's a safety security issue on so many ways. So if you can't sell it because no one wants to believe you that they're doing this with it, fine. Self-injurious behavior then. That will win the argument all the time. Hey, guys, they can cut themselves or they can hurt us with it. Okay, so now this we're going to be a little bit more specific with. I have this as the rest of the dialogue, a little bit more strategic. And this actually is definitely one of Russ's areas of expertise. So, Russ, at first, I would like to do this generally, and then we'll be more specific. But let's break down an actual cell search. And I'm talking about everything from a single cell to a double cell to a dorm. So let's go general first, Russ. So are there any tactics that would be the same between a single cell, a double cell, and a dorm that we could start off with first before we break into individually looking at each one? So let's break down a cell search or a dorm search. What are some of the things that in general we can look for?
Okay, I'll start with a cell search first because it's the smallest area of a place where an inmate can actually be put on the hot seat for having something, because we can use the fact that he's assigned to that specific small area as a piece of what's called constructive possession, right? So constructive possession is what we can sometimes use when we don't catch the inmate in actual possession. It's much more difficult depending on the number of the people in the cell. If there's two, if we find it in their area, a specific locker or whatever, we can use that to some degree. Probably isn't going to fly if we're looking at, some kind of outside prosecution, but it could, depending on, how good our constructive possession is. So the first thing that I like to do in a cell setting when I'm getting ready to search is bring the inmates out and we strip search them, right? We make sure that we do that exclusionary search to bring them out of there, that they have no possible area that they can have contraband on, except for naturally, some kind of bodily orifice. But when we go up to that cell and we look through that window, hopefully it's a good sized window where we can see, and we say, hey, keep your hands out. We have enough people there. Maybe this is a targeted search. Maybe that's why we're doing it this way, and bring them out and give them a thorough search. We want to make sure, they don't have, heroin between their fingers. These areas here, I mean, it's real easy for a guy to have a little piece of heroin in there and you'll never see it. So we want to watch that. We do the exclusionary search. We make sure that they're completely clean. All of their clothing, all of their hair, everything from top to bottom as good as we can get it. From that point, then it all becomes about the cell and not contraband moving in or out due to their presence. So the first thing that I always do is I start looking at the door. You got to take a couple of security precautions in this too. We don't want the inmates watching any of this. And second of all, we don't want the inmates close enough that, they could, run in there and push us inside and close the door and do all that stuff. But there's a thing that you have to do with regards to that door. You have to examine it both open and closed. So you have to have a cover officer there and you have to, be able to pull that door closed, look at all the nooks and crannies, make sure that, it's completely free of contraband, and then pin it open and have control, make it so that that thing cannot be closed on you in there. But with regards to the door, it's harder to search because if you have access to, like, let's say a metal detector and the door is metal, it doesn't do you any real good. So you want to make sure that, any areas of the door that have hollow spots in them that you can get out with a mirror, that you can maybe get out with a little mechanical grabber. I used to have one of those, and, sometimes you couldn't even see, but you could reach around the corner and, next thing you know, you got a little balloon or baggie of heroin or methamphetamine on the end of that thing. Or if you've got a magnet, sometimes you'd pull up a little piece of metal weapon stock, or sometimes even a weapon itself. But we have to check the inside and the outside and all the rails and everything on that door the best we can. It has to be thorough, and we have to do everything that we can, short of disassembling that thing, to make sure that that area is clear of contraband. And from there, then I always tried to use a spiral pattern, because I could overlap in the easiest way, but people use grids and all kinds of things. But I would just start and, try and go over the walls, because I've seen guys that have chipped out pieces of the wall, chipped out pieces of the floor, put a cell phone or something in there, put toothpaste or something over it, managed to smuggle some paint out from vocations and paint it, and you can't tell. So tap on things. We used to have batons, so it was great. We could tap on something that looked a little bit fishy, tap on something that maybe looked like it had been freshly painted, and just start that spiral process, moving closer and closer toward the middle. Be curious and check things, though, because along the way, if you see something that doesn't line up right, maybe they have a desk that's bolted to the wall. We found one time where they had cut through the metal in one of those desks where the seat comes out, and that whole thing is hollow in there, and it was just chock full of cell phones, right? So don't think that just because it looks good that it is good. Check every weld, tap on things, scratch things. If you have access to some tools, you might need to even disassemble some things. But by the time you get to the very center of that room, you should have done a really thorough search. And that includes tapping on places in the ceiling, checking the light fixtures, looking for any place where anything's damaged. If there's a damage to, that light fixture or something like that, it's an indication that it's been messed with. So you want to make sure that you do a complete exclusionary search, top to bottom, beginning to end, ending in the middle, in my opinion. And the things that you can use metal detectors on, of course, things like cardboard boxes that they might have in their cell, the mattress, of course. One big one that's easy to start. You're going to have to go smaller than this, but you grab that laundry bag that they've got, check it with a metal detector. Maybe set it aside for your partner to go through it and do more thorough. Sometimes we'll get those hits right off the beginning, especially if it's a targeted search and we have some inkling that, some kind of weapon manufacturer is going on. And so we'll be in the money right from the very beginning. But usually we have to go, all the way down to the finer stuff before we start, having joy.
Yeah, and guys, don't limit the inmate's innovation based on your limitations. Like, I'm 5'5", and when I go into a cell or an area, if I'm searching something, I may think in my head for a second, well, there's no way no one can reach that. Nope, not going to happen. And then you find out that, oh yeah, they can easily reach it. You that can't easily reach it, So, and that's why Russ had a story a couple of weeks ago where he had trouble opening something, and Russ could have given up and said, I can't open it. There's no way no one can open that. But what did Russ do? Russ got someone else who figured out a way to open it, and bam, not knowing how the contraband got there, but there was contraband there. So don't stop at your own limitations. Don't see the world just through your eyes. See it through the eyes of someone who doesn't have your limitations. I have seen stuff hidden in places that I'm saying, like, well, how the hell could somebody reach it? But they do. They do reach it. Some of these inmates are very athletic, and they can get to places real quick by just jumping, boop, putting it there, and not thinking that anybody can get to it. So a lot of inmates that are taller in nature or have, some athletic ability, they love putting things in outer reach places because we may not have the availability to do it. But the next thing I know, I'm going to say, hey, Russ, can you do this search with me? Sometimes it's good. I know this may sound crazy, but hear me out. Maybe it's good as a search team to partner somebody really tall with somebody really small. You know what I mean? Because the person really small will get to areas that maybe a bigger person can't. And then a person really tall can get to areas that smaller person can't. And together, it's like frickin' frat, right? The wife could eat no fat. The husband could eat no lean. But between the both of them, they lick the platter clean. Yeah, I think that's frickin' frat. But either way, hey, Russ, did anything I say make a little sense about how sometimes we may look at our own limitations and assume that there's no way it could be done, but there it is. It's done.
Oh yeah, certainly possible. I especially, find that, where you're partnered up with someone who's maybe they've had the experience of where things are normally found in this type of housing unit, and maybe you don't work over there very often, and they can point you in some of the right directions. But then by the same token, you have a fresh perspective on it, because sometimes people can limit themselves by, they start getting into the habits of, they search X, Y, and Z, and they've completely forgotten about A, B, and C, because they don't see it that way, because they work there every single day. And, I get back to that whole thing. That's the complacency of routine and familiarity. And that's something, we want to avoid. We want fresh perspectives whenever we can get them.
Hey, Russ, would that be something you'd be interested in doing a whole show on by yourself? Maybe the how we may see our own limitations as impossibilities for the inmates?
Oh, absolutely.
I think that's legit. I don't know where it came from, but I remember a story you shared not too long ago about how you couldn't get to something, but you could have quit. And you said, well, let me just see if I'm the only person that can't get to this. And when the other person did, there was the contraband. But most people would be like, nah, too much of an effort. No way they're doing it. Too much effort for you.
Yes.
Maybe not for somebody else. All right, so that was pretty cool, I thought. Hey, Russ, so you talked about the cell, and we talked a little bit about a dorm. Now, some people may see a dorm as a centralized area, and don't get me wrong, there's parts of it that is, but for the most part, it's a living space. And I believe a living space is treated differently than a centralized area, because one, the living space is personal and holds some level of accountability if discovered, where a centralized area is more, hey, prove it to me. Just prove it to me. So I think that when you find inmates that hide stuff in their living space, it's more of protection. I got to have this for protection. And again, because they know the consequence of accountability for that, as opposed to inmates that may just house weapons out there in the centralized area. It's more about access in case something does happen. I'm not saying it's not utilized for protection, but it's more of, hey, if we're going to go to war, this is where our stuff's going to be. Let's be ready for it. But Russ, would you think there's a difference real quick in hiding something in a living space as opposed to hiding something in a centralized area in the mindset of the inmate?
Yeah, because one thing that the more the more densely populated portions of housing have for them is plausible deniability. It's gonna be much more difficult to establish possession. And yeah, we can establish, constructive possession depending on the circumstances of some things. But by the same token, the inmate's always going to say, well, anyone could have put it there. Or where did you get that information? How come you searched there? Maybe I was being set up. And so there is a certain air of plausibility to something like that. By the same token, one reason that they really like those dorm areas is because it's really easy to put other people that are working in concert with you on securing that item. People will stay back behind and not go to breakfast or lunch, and they'll rotate in and out if they have, like, let's say, a cache of weapons, or if they have a pretty big, cache of dope in there that they have yet to distribute. And so the entire STG can participate in maintaining that and seeing what's going on. If it's left in just a common area where everybody congregates, they have a harder time doing that. But a guy just sitting in a bed watching where the dope is, gives them a much better feeling about being able to make sure that they're not going to lose it, because dope, high value item, and you don't want to get caught owing on that kind of thing. So those are some of the things that I think about excuse me, when you're looking at those bigger living areas, the dorms and so forth. With dorms too, though, you also have a lot more butting heads, potential conflicts, especially when we start talking about potential STGs and ethnic factions, be it black, white, Mexican, what have you. So there's always a chance that these guys, they try and stock up ahead of time, try and have access to some kind of weapon. Maybe it's a bar of soap in a sock, or a lock in a sock, or just access. Maybe if it's in a lower area like that, maybe they have disposable razors, and so they always have one that they're ready to break down and make a tomahawk out of it if they need to. So there's a lot to that. By the same token, when you look at when you're making your rounds through dorms and stuff, the guys that aren't involved in the stuff, or even some of the ones that are, dead giveaways all the time due to body language, the way the size of their eyes when you walk by something, the way they conduct themselves, the level of noise in the dorm, all kinds of things can be dead giveaways. And it's much easier to read a dorm than it is a cell.
Right, right. And now, so again, when we do this series of videos, I think we're going to probably find a way to start working on those immediately. Maybe if me and Russ have time, we'll put the first one up today. Maybe we'll see. I mean, we'll see how time goes. I'll talk to Russ later in the day. I do have another idea. Maybe we should do something on dorms first. Let's do the dorms first, then go to the different work areas, because there are parts of a dorm that are centralized, of course. But I consider the dorm the living space. There's one more thing I want to cover that I feel is most important before we start wrapping this down. And it's doing some specific, giving some specific tips on an inmate's living space. So now, guys, when we're talking about an inmate's living space, this is where all their personal items are, including hygiene, legal documents, whatever it is, a lot of stuff that they may utilize to hide contraband. Because, guys, let me just explain something. Inmates have rights. No matter where they're at, they have rights to their legal material. They have rights to their hygiene products. So sometimes inmates will make an effort to hide things amongst the things that they feel are most protected, because they don't feel that we're going to make the effort to go through that. And guys, sometimes I'll give you an example for gang intel. Sometimes you'll find manifestos and all that stuff in their legal documents because they know that we may not go through all that. So Russ, just think, if you can, I mean, if you could really just dive in deep here, because this to me is a big portion of what we're discussing here, is the inmate's living space and how inventive they can be within that living space to hide stuff. And maybe you could be even specific in how they can hide stuff in a powder and make it look like it's unopened, or, again, hiding stuff in their legal documents, stuff like that. Like if you really went and did a search, I get it, some do quadrants, some do the inner spiral, I guess, to get to that one point. But in the process, what are they doing when that search is broken down through quadrants or spirals? How deep diving are they going into the inmate's property? Because again, I mean, you got a small area here, but it's really not so much about the area. It's about what they're allowed to have in that area that makes it complicated for us to find items, correct?
Yeah, sometimes you're you're really limited by your time. If you're being told, hey, we're going to go search this dorm, and you've got 5 people on it and you've got an hour to do it, you're going to kind of have to not be as thorough as you would like to be. So what you have to start doing is you have to start prioritizing what you can and can't accomplish in any given circumstance. So one of the things I like to do is I just like to go by and think about does this inmate look like he is in the game? Does he look like he's possibly nervous before we take him out? That kind of thing. Those items, especially you guys, if you're in jails, you may not see the number of food items that we have to deal with in a prison, but they'll be massive. And I spent one day, only had a few minutes to conduct some searches, but this guy had a massive amount. He had like 6 or so of these big coffee creamers, and I thought, wow, this guy really likes coffee. And then I got to looking again, and wow, man, he had lots of coffee too. And so I just started looking at some of the containers, and like one of them was extra full, not the coffee, but the creamer. And I thought, well, that's kind of strange. And so I emptied it out into a bag. And I mean, it was really all I had time for was just, that one search of his little area. But that got me a cell phone and its creamer. So there's a lot of things you look for. They can do false bottoms. False bottoms is a big thing. That they're able to do. The other thing is just, tiny little bits of cellophane and stuff wrapped up with drugs, stuffed down in that creamer. If you don't pour it out and go through every little bit of it, you're going to miss it. Other opportunities, depending on what type of locker and so forth it is, just, edges around the inside, because, they can take and tape something to that you'll never see unless, you're using a mirror and a good light. And I'll tell you what, I've made more discoveries having a nice big mirror and a good, really super powerful flashlight than any other tools that I've ever used. But it's also good to when you're thinking about this stuff, especially if you're in the prison game where they have a lot more access to things. Like, for instance, you see a guy and he's got, maybe 20 CDs, of all different music, because he's got that Walkman or whatever. And you wouldn't think they could hide something in there, but heck, I've seen where they take and they cut down a cell phone and rearrange all the guts inside of a CD case, not the CD itself. And, they make it into a workable telephone where the pad is just flat in there and they can dial numbers off of it. I've seen where they, can take those because they look like electronics, and they take their see-through TV apart and mount the boards in there and have an earpiece that goes to a Bluetooth that's inside the TV set now. And they make all of those seals look good again. And, they're able to, talk on that telephone that's mounted inside the TV. So the amount of ingenuity is sometimes astounding. You just have to do what you can to try and come up with a maximum amount of contraband that you can in the time that you're allowed. That's all part of the game too.
Yeah, and guys, I want to add something too, kind of in that limitation aspect. I'm actually going to add this. This will be in my daily reader. All because you can't lift something doesn't mean they can't, or move something. I have seen things under stuff that you couldn't lift on your own, but then when you call somebody to help you, lift it, and there it is. Maybe it's a foot locker that's just really, obviously take stuff up and move it. But in some cases here, people will be like, yo, let me just try to move. Oh, I can't move it. Leave it be. Or lockers. Sometimes inmates have lockers and I can't move it. And then you get a partner and you can move it. It's like, well, there's no way this inmate's doing it on their own. You have no idea how strong some of these inmates are. I mean, to the point where some people think that strength is superhuman. I have seen inmates bench 600, mid 600. An inmate they call Truck. I watched him bench in a Fullman area on free weights, and I counted the weights on both sides, and it totaled over 600 pounds. There's no way fathomable in my mind I can understand what that person can move. I'm never going to understand that. 600 something pounds up and over his chest like it's candy. So there's no way I'm going to be able to go into a cell and literally say there's no way someone can't move that. I'm not going to understand that, especially at that level of the game. Hey Russ, we have a lot to cover, so we are going to have to do future videos, but this is a great video to kind of complete and send over to the person who requested it. Do you have anything you would like to say in closing to kind of wrap this up? And then Russ, we have a lot of work to do.
Yeah. So this is what I would say to you, if you're out there and you really want to, get more into the contraband game, is number one, be curious about things, investigate things, and get yourself into a position where you can understand, how, when, and why people hide things. I always try and tell people it's not about the area, it's not about the method that they hide it. It's about being able to detect why it's being hidden there in the first place. Having said that, there is a component of, that I'll call it, inmate tradecraft, if you will, about how they hide things. A buddy of mine, he once figured out that this little area that looked like it was, littered with some little rat and mouse droppings, those were really black tar heroin. So never underestimate that. And then lastly, I'll just say, use your resources, use that flashlight, use any tools that you're allowed to check out from control. Make sure that you're able to, have those things at your disposal. A good metal detector can take you a long ways more quickly than some things. You know, sometimes we would do a dorm entry and we would have a metal detector with us, and we would maybe just say, okay, right now we're just doing laundry bags. Surprise these guys, go through there. And the next thing I know, you know, I've got, I'll never forget this one time, you know, now and then I would find a phone in the laundry bag. But one time I found like 3 phones in one laundry bag. And I wouldn't have been able to do that and do the search that quickly and that effectively without something like that, that metal detector there. So, you know, leverage every opportunity that you've got to do those things, and just, you know, make it hard, be in these inmates' business and make conducting their business as difficult as possible.
Yeah, guys, I think as we come to close, and I think one of the things here is I'm also going to see if I can get Steve Menard in on a couple of these. I think Russ will enjoy a good back and forth with him. I think there's a lot of good things here that we could break down from this video. Some individual videos specific to certain areas, because it is a lot to cover. And that was maybe a little wild for me to kind of ask for us to try to be as specific as he can. But again, I think there's a way. Again, we don't plan things. We trust in our experience. When we have the dialogue, we see where it goes. And then eventually we kind of, okay, you know what? We're going to need to have more than that. So obviously there's a little bit of a shift in mindset there. But having said that, we'll work on the next video sometime this week, have it sent out, and we'll just do a series of, you know, videos that to help us be better at our searches. And guys, I hope you guys watched the whole video, because the intel got better as this video progressed. It's funny because here's something unique about what we do in the format we do here. We know what we're going to talk about, but we discover the course along the way. So the funny thing is, you don't get the best of the dialogue at the beginning. Not when people, you know, we're not like people that have it planned, that, you know, they get exhausted as they start running. No, we're in the marathon here. Our dialogue gets better as it progresses forward, because we build up on each other's thoughts. And that's why for people that don't watch the whole video, you're missing out on the strongest part of the dialogue. Also, if you don't watch the whole video, you don't understand the context of the dialogue. See, we're kind of shifty like that. You know, we're a little sneaky. You know, you can't come in and say, well, I'm going to watch the last 15 minutes and get the gist of it. Nope, not going to work, because the dialogue evolved into that. So you're not going to understand the level we're at unless you've taken the journey with us. And you're not going to get the best of the information within the first 10 or 15 minutes, because we haven't even provided it yet. We haven't gotten it to that point. So how do you get the best from these videos? By watching the whole thing. And I know there's people that want shorter context or shorter content. I get it. And there are times we can do that. But guys, we're giving out information that could be tremendous when it comes to liability. And everything we do may not always be able to be applied by certain facilities or by certain individuals within their growth. You know, there's certain advice you can give a senior that you can't give a rookie. So we have to provide context, because context is part of that application. And I'm sorry, guys, tips without context, they're shortcuts. They're shortcuts. We're here telling you these are the tips, and these are why the tips have to be implemented. Not these are the tips, go run with them. Foolish. What kind of training is that? We've done shows where we talk about training officers. Guys, give the why, give the why, give the why. And as much as it takes time to watch a video, an hour something a day, I get it. You know, we have over 1,100 and something videos on this channel. So imagine the time that we committed for other people to watch it. I mean, think about that. Gangi, can you make it shorter? We could, but it won't be as much value as making it longer. So it's our time too, on a scale that you wouldn't believe. When people said, hey, Gangi, you know, how do you guys produce this type of video with this type of information? How is it that the videos, some people are getting better and better, even though it's longer, it's more detailed? How do I get that to that point? By doing 1,100 something videos. It's the only way you can do it. How do you become the best person at searches? Day by day. And it's not even about becoming the best. It's just about becoming better. Infinite game is never about the best. It's just about being better every day, because there is no end game in growth and learning. You know, I'm the best, so I stop. Nope. No one's going to be the best. We're striving to be better. That's the key. As always, guys, the show is tipped off. If you haven't, please subscribe, interact, engage, comment, hit that bell. Bell's going to notify you every time I post up a video. Stay safe.